Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the Fertility and Family Planning Moonshot session right now. My name is Parisa Verma, and I'm a youth delegate here at the World Woman Davos Agenda and a sophomore at Yale University, where I am a global health scholar studying cognitive science and pursuing minors in Mandarin and Spanish. And I hope to one day enter the medical field myself, and I'm honored to welcome you all here today. And so I wanted to start by introducing our topic. And I think the need for fertility and family planning solutions is profound and universal. According to the World Health Organization, among the 2 billion women of reproductive age worldwide in 2021, 1.1 had a need for family planning, with 874 million women using modern contraceptive methods. However, the gap is alarming. 164 million women still face an unmet need for contraception, and 25% of reproductive age women have unsatisfied family planning needs. Despite progress, disparities persist, particularly in low-resource settings where access to education, healthcare, and cultural factors often hinder equitable solutions. I myself am a patient aide in women's gynecology at Yale New Haven Hospital, and I have seen this every day in my own work. I think that today's Moonshot is a call to action to confront these systemic challenges with innovation and collaboration and bold thinking. Together, we can reimagine fertility and family planning systems to meet the needs of all individuals, regardless of their geography or circumstances. And to help us explore this important topic, we are fortunate to have an extraordinary moderator, Sabina Hutchinson, former board president of the Healthcare Businesswomen Association and current CEO of SUS Plus, who has been a trailblazer in healthcare leadership. And with such a distinguished group of experts, I encourage all of us to engage deeply and think creatively and leave today with actionable ideas for a future where fertility and family planning solutions are accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is the first time I've been called a trailblazer. I think I like it. Really nice, thank you. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here today, because as you can hear, this is a very important topic, and it's a very important topic for myself and also the panelists that are here today. So we're going to be discussing, as you heard, fertility and family planning. And I think what's going to be interesting about this panel is that we're going to look at data. So we're going to talk about numbers, but we're also going to talk about very personal stories, because that's the key. Thank you. Hold the microphone up. Because we live in a world loaded with statistics. Numbers are everywhere. It influences our decisions. It shapes policy. It's a very important thing. But behind those numbers are just thousands of stories, and they're very important stories to be heard. So this panel is all about connecting those dots. That's going to be the beautiful part of this. So we're going to hear statistics. Like, if you didn't know, in Switzerland, currently the birth rate has fallen to an all-time low of 1.39. Or that 1 in 6 individuals are going to struggle with infertility. And it's predicted in 2050, and that's not very far away, that 3/4 of the world countries are not going to be able to sustain their populations because of infertility issues. And that's alarming, and something needs to be done, and that's why we're here today. But today's conversation is about the numbers, but it's also about the stories and the experiences of the panelists and what they're going to share with you today. So we need to solve these problems. We can't do it alone. That's why we're here as a collaborative. That's why we need to look at how we can, as organizations, as individuals, as groups, as associations, to make a change. So remember, we do all play a part. So I ask you to sit back, enjoy, listen, hear the numbers, but also definitely hear the stories that are going to be told. And I'd like to start by introducing the panel. So first of all, we have Khadija I'm sorry, the microphone keeps going. I'm used to a headset. Khadija Ben Hamada. Khadija is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Merck. And her journey is very interesting as well. It's definitely didn't follow any kind of stereotypes. She became the CHRO when she was 41 and pregnant and having just experienced IVF treatments. So it was really interesting to listen to previous conversations that we had, because you really talked about the assumptions that people made as well, and that because she's a very career-oriented woman, maybe others have experienced this as well, and she didn't yet have children. That made an impact, and people made assumptions about that. But that actually had quite a toll on her personally and professionally. So she's going to share some of her stories around that. And also, there's no right or wrong time, is there, to make a decision about a family. So thank you. Next, we have Dr. Carolina Carnaval, and she is from the WHO country office, the representative in Romania. So we're really pleased to have you here today. And it was also interesting listening to you to some of the conversations that we've had, because you said that we can do anything. Women should not be limited, and we can all have international careers, and we can also have families along with us. So it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks very much for coming on the stage. And next we have Professor Gudrun Sander, and she is the director of the Institute of International Management and Diversity Management in St. Gallen. So it's a pleasure to have you here. And it was also interesting to hear some of your stories as well, because you were told early in your career that if you were going to have a family and your career, forget about it, because it's not going to happen. It can't work. And you have then been committed to empowering women to actually have families and to have a very successful career as well. And I think what's interesting about this topic about fertility is that you shared a story around an employee that came to her and shared and actually opened up about this experience, and it opened your eyes because you had no problems having your children, and so it really led to, we need to have more conversations about this and bring that conversation into work. So thank you very much. And finally, we have the gentleman on the panel today. So I'd like to introduce you to Florian Schick. He's the president of Merck Switzerland. And Florian is also a very dedicated leader to this topic. He's a proud father of a young son. And I thought this statement this really stuck with me when you said this. Starting a family, which should be one of life's greatest joys, is still many surrounded by taboos and stigma. And this is a question we should all ask ourselves. How can this be a reality today? So thank you very much. Florian is a big ally on this project, and we're really looking forward to hearing your story. So now into the fun part, to listen to all of the stories. And I think the first thing is, why are you here? Why is this topic important for you?
A couple of reasons. First of all, Davos is beautiful, but most important, I think, two key reasons. I mean, at Merck, the company I represent here with Florian, this is part of our purpose. Every single day, we have 63,000 employees coming to work to improve life of patient and customer through our medicines, life science solution, and electronics product. And fertility and family planning is part of that purpose. And the second point, you said, my own story. I mean, I myself went to a fertility treatment. I found the journey joyful, but also very challenging. And I also want to make sure that we can help collectively each other to understand that it is joy, but it could be challenging. But we can overcome those challenges together if we talk about it, if we increase awareness and accessibility. So those are the key reasons for me, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And Gudrun, how about you?
Yeah, for me it's very important because we work since decades in the topic of diversity, equity and inclusion at the Competence Center for Diversity, Disability and Inclusion. And what we realize is that a lot of employees do not open up when they have, let's say, health issues or mental health issues or whatever. And once they feel comfortable opening up, so having a feeling there is a psychological safe space to talk about it, then they need leaders on the other side who know how to react. And this was my experience as you introduced me, that I realized I know nothing about it, I don't know how to react properly, so we really have to educate leaders.
And Florian?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sabine. It's actually nice to see not only me being a male in the crowd. It's quite a good sign, I guess. So, why? I think it's not a female topic only. It's also a male topic all along the way. Okay, so I think science tells half of the infertility cases are coming from male. So I think through the journey of having a family, it is not a female topic, it's also a male topic. And as you said, so I'm a proud father, also a proud husband, and with our child, I think I have some own experience now and can relate a bit more. But you said it, I think the burden is high. So in Switzerland, every fifth couple is affected of infertility. And I think, maybe I can ask, if that is okay, the room, if you have personal experience with infertility in your social network, with your friends or your family, or you've had a conversation with a couple who tried and couldn't, start a family on the natural birth. Can I ask for a show of hands if that has happened ever? And it's half the room, so it's what we hear all the time. And at the same time, there's plenty of things to do. It still depends, unfortunately, on your level of income, if you can access some of the innovation in the field. It's in many ways socially stigmatized, lots of taboos around it, also with the current young generation. It's not, I think, over, so I think my motivation comes from changing that together with many and many here in the room.
Thanks. Caroline.
Thank you very much. And actually, I should have risen my hand, because it's not that I was personally affected, but obviously working for WHO, we do talk about fertility and family planning very regularly, and we have programs in that. But it's also more further away friends that actually suffer. And the numbers of times that I have listened to those stories, the numbers of times that I just tried to spend, demonstrate the empathy for them whilst they were going through those difficult times, that should have made me raise my hand. So I do that now in hindsight. What my why here is a bit more of, I also wanted to bring in human rights into discussion. Reproductive rights are human rights, and when we face difficulties with them, they affect our human dignity, they affect our self-determination, they affect equality. And I just wanted to bring in that bigger picture into this debate. And I also wanted to highlight that although we are struggling with these thematics, we are nevertheless not shying away from addressing them, and being here today is a wonderful opportunity to act. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And I think I'll let the audience know as well, because we had a discussion about this when we were doing a bit of a prep before. If you have a burning question or you relate to something, stand up. Don't feel that you're interrupting us, because we want this to be a dynamic dialogue as well. So it doesn't have to wait until the end. So feel free, if you'd like to ask a question or share a story, feel free to do that. But it's an interesting topic. Gudrun, you mentioned, this kind of ties into what you were saying, is that often when we bring this topic into the work, it's traditionally very private. We think about our fertility and having a family, and it's a private topic that we talk about with our spouses or our friends and family. But it is part of a journey. And how do you, Khadija, I'm curious to hear, how do you balance this? How do you bring this into your work at Merck, and to make it feel more balanced, and it's part of an employee's journey and not something separate that they have to bring into it?
I think you said the right word. It's part of the employee journey. And did you know that all of us, we will spend 1/3 of our life at work? So shaping an environment when you come at work and you feel at your best is important. And as much as it's private and we don't want to interfere as an employer, we want to create an environment where you feel confident, the psychological safety that you mentioned as well, where people can speak up and be themselves. And we know, as we are a key player in the fertility, that it's a burden. We know that many patients are suffering. So what we wanted to do is to create that ecosystem where people can come out and can share with us in a very safe environment how they are struggling. So it's part of our culture, it's ingrained in everything we do, in the values, and it's not enough to say we care. You have to show how you care. And one way is to have a couple of initiatives proving your caring spirit, but also having leaders being capable to show that empathy that Caroline, also Jens mentioned. So we invest very much on leadership with empathy. We invest very much in having an ecosystem where we can help family to have the balance they need. And we went even further. we understood that many people are suffering with infertility, 1 in 6, so we wanted to launch a fertility benefit. We wanted to tell our employee, it doesn't matter where you are in your life, if you are struggling with that, we are here to support you. So 18 months ago, we launched that benefit for every single employee who wanted to be supported financially and from a psychological point of view as well, taking the financial burden and supporting them towards IVF, egg freezing, any kind of fertility treatment. I cannot tell you how much that benefit was well received internally from our employee and externally from the environment. And a very, very short story which was quite fascinating. We work for a German company, we're in a DAX company, and when we did that benefits, it was like a big bang. Every newspaper in Germany were talking about us. So I'm sharing that story not to say, hey, we were doing a great thing, because I was very surprised. It should be part of the culture. We should not be surprised that we are doing such a thing. But the key message here, it's a journey, we have to invest, it has to be part of the culture, but we also need to have strong proof point. And this example of a fertility benefit supporting everyone, no matter where they are financially, is a proof point on how we can support a family and fertility journey.
And I think it's really interesting. I just found out this number also while we were chatting, and I think it's quite impressive. Do you want to share how many families that have been impacted by this?
So within the last 18 months, 500 of our employees have raised their hand and say, hey, I would love to be supported. We supported them from a financial point of view. The overall cost is around 2 million euros, and it's not about the cost. It's about the joy that maybe within those 500 employees, we might have even more babies, beautiful babies. My baby is a beautiful baby, by the way. If I knew how good I was in making babies, I would have made 10. But Modern Nature has decided to give me one. But can you imagine the joy we can bring with our medicine, but with the support? And we have been supporting people in China, in India, in France, in Germany, in the US, in the UK, in Japan, everywhere. So hopefully, finger crossed, we might have another 500 babies.
So Merck is definitely helping with the population issue. Yeah, fantastic. And I think, Florian, what's interesting is it ties a bit to that too, is that it's not only that you do these initiatives within your company, but you've also taken another step and started an initiative which I think is also impressive, and it shows again this action, because that's what we're all about, is how can we take action.
Yeah, so I think we need to be intentional about this. It will not fall from the sky, despite we might be surprised that we still have to talk, so deeply about infertility and family planning. I will build a bit what Khadija just mentioned on the beautiful babies, I think this fertility benefit, when we launched it, of course, some are positively impacted very directly, okay? So we were able to cover financially for all our 2,600 colleagues here in Switzerland, and we were the first ones to do it. So I can tell you the feedback was so-so. It's not super positive all the way. I got a lot of challenging questions. Isn't that a very private topic? Should you get involved in this as an employer? Why are you doing this? Do you try to keep, do you have bad intentions in some shape or form, Do you really want to support your female talents? So I found creativity, how you can find the negative in this, that I found inspiring. I found it also quite shocking that there was so much creativity in that direction. I will say our leaders, if I may say, were also directly impacted by the fertility benefit, because they suddenly realized we bring this on the agenda, not only to financially support and not to intervene in a personal decision, of course, but I think to create room and create a workplace and a culture where having a family, having a career is not a problem. And I think that was, to me, probably also one of the moments where we said, what else can we do? And then we decided, with some of the partners actually here being in the room today, let's do something together. We founded a foundation called Family Forward. So now Family Forward is basically a mix of academia, industry leaders, where we interact on all levels, including policymakers in Switzerland, to argue what do you need to do to tackle infertility. And I think this is the next step, what you can do as an employer, and then I think you need to partner up, okay? Because after all, it's about legislation, it's also about funding, making, giving access to existing innovation.
And I think that that's such an important point, because obviously the example that you gave around that you offer these fertility services to your employees, not every employer can do that, but there are alternatives. So there are associations to get involved with. You can do something else, and it's just about finding those. So definitely reach out to either Florian or myself if you're interested. So we'll do a little plug for Family Forward as well. Thanks. And sorry. And Caroline, at the beginning, I shared some statistics that 1 in 6 people will suffer from challenges around infertility. And if you take a step back, that was, we also shared some numbers in Switzerland, but if you take a step back and look at it from a global perspective, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and feedback around how can we start to bring this into the healthcare systems, into the countries, obviously in your work with the WHO.
That's a fascinating question, and it actually comes along with many other topics that we are looking at, including family planning. So in WHO, we have this wonderful ability to draft normative guidelines, right? And that's the moment when everybody in the room falls asleep. So what is important is that those guidelines are based on the state-of-the-art knowledge and expertise that we have available, provided they are not outdated or in revision. What I want to say here is at the global level, all the countries, member states, academics, scientists, etc., get together in order to develop that expertise and to draft those guidelines. We have them now for infertility because it has been considered a disease, which I think is a wonderful step forward, but we also have them in terms of family planning for the younger generations. We have them in terms of for everything related to sexual and reproductive health, so that for us is an enormous area of work. But how do we work with member states? So allow me just 2 seconds. So WHO is a member state-driven organization. And my day-to-day job and the day-to-day job of my team is to make sure that we take those guidelines that are very well drafted, that we then work together with the member states, with the ministries of health and all the other stakeholders, the academia, physicians, healthcare providers, patient organizations, etc., and that collectively with them, we then, and that's the trick, contextualize those guidelines to what is the most appropriate for the given country. And the fascinating part here is that we have to tailor that to every country where we work. So the recommendations we would make in one country, they might differ in another one simply because the health systems differ, because the environment is different, because the needs are different, because the cultural settings are different, and we need to consider all this. And that's when we have to make that intellectual effort to make sure that the global guidelines are relevant at local level.
Yeah. Gudrun, that actually feeds in beautifully to you because we're in Switzerland, beautiful Davos, and a lot of your research actually highlights some of the systemic barriers that that individuals and to fertility treatments. And what do you see specifically in Switzerland? And can you share some of your experiences around that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. In Switzerland, especially, one of the main problems is the access. So if you are not rich, not married, not heterosexual, you have a problem. You don't have access to a lot of these treatments. And it is considered an illness, and it's nearly a fun fact to say that there is a decision on the federal level in 1987 based on the state of the research in infertility at that age. So where it was decided that the costs are not covered. There is a motion on the way, so hopefully it will change in the future, but at the moment it's very expensive. So for an average income couple, it can be 50% of their annual income what they have to spend for the treatment. So this is a huge barrier. And then we have this more cultural barrier already mentioned, that it's a private thing. So neither the government nor the employer has to care about family planning. And honestly, if I look at the companies, and we work with around 150 companies in our institute, there is still this idea, once there is a pregnancy or a woman on a career ladder and then she's getting pregnant, that's a problem. And if we still have this picture in mind and don't normalize it, it's for a lot of people it's the normal thing to have a family. It's not a problem. It's just, as you framed it, Khadija, it's the experience of the employees with the company. We really have to change this mindset. So that's more on the cultural side.
It's actually interesting to hear you say that, because then you start thinking about the age of the women. So when they're younger, you talk about the costs that are associated with the chances of the fertility being successful is higher. But then as a woman gets older, I experienced that as well, that the rates go down and you still have to deal with the costs that are associated with that. So it's this really, it is this crazy balance that we do have to deal with.
Yeah, and what we see at the moment, we never ever had so many well-educated women on the labor market. And because of knowing it will impact their career in a negative way, they try to postpone the topic. And then, on the other hand, they are not educated enough on the topic. What does it mean to postpone the topic? And once they have problems, then it might be too late, and they might need a lot of cycles if they are successful at all. And that's a huge problem at the moment, so that I think we really have to change also the career paths in the companies, making it more flexible, you know, that the young women do not have the pressure, I have to go to succeed to this step, and only then I can negotiate and have my family, because that's weird. So we should encourage the young people to have their children early. They can work for the companies very long then, until 70 probably.
True. But it's this point, when's the right time? Yeah.
I mean, if I can comment on that, I mean, the right time is always different from one person to another one. And I think we should not be judgmental. We should not put pressure. We should not give even guidance on when is the right time. It's the right time when it's your right time. And I always said that professionally and personally, all of us, we have our own story and our own schedule. My schedule was to have my son when I was 41, and that was the right time for me. My schedule was also to become chief HR officer as 41. I think we should be educated about the fact that it might become a journey, but don't feel any pressure. And what I also have learned, and this is maybe a call for action to everyone, to not make assumptions around us. We don't know what's going on in people's life. Some people have a career because they want to have a career, because they might also struggle to have a family. Some people don't have family because it's a personal choice. So we should not judge. We should help, encourage, lift up each other, get inspired by our story, but also respect that it's always the right time when it's a personal right time. And that's only my key message here, is to really, really help each other, talk openly about our story. And maybe a last point that you mentioned about career is, we have to break the silo and show stories. When I became chief HR officer and I was pregnant and very well rounded, beautifully rounded, people are like, wow, can you do that? I think when we show proof point and success story that it's possible, then we inspire young ladies, young girls, hey, it's possible, I can make it. So we need to have more and more of those stories, more than data, strong stories showing that it's possible.
And I think, again, to the point, that's what you as a leader in your organization can do. You can create an environment for that. You can have open conversations regardless of the age or the person, or if it's male or female as well. So to set that culture. And I'm curious to hear, how have you done that within work and in your role? How have you established a culture where it's open to have these conversations and things aren't taboo?
I mean, it starts at the top for leaders, and I mean, Florian is a good example. Look at him; he's sitting here today. He's a male, and he's advocating for that. I mean, it's really start with that. So we really try to make sure that our leaders, those who have people responsibility, are leading the right example. We are also telling success story like mine, but like many others, and we are also not tolerating when people are basically not displaying the right leadership or right behaviors. I think it's just not normal to basically say, hey, are you going to go on maternity leave? When are you coming back? No. We are really, let's say, coming after every single behaviors, and I like to say we make sure that our audio match the video. If we say we care, if we say we are a family-friendly company, we need to make sure that we display those behaviors. So consistency, repetition, leadership, starting from the top, and making sure that we also don't tolerate when it's not happening.
Yeah, that's a big step to not tolerate, because those are the difficult decisions to make. Yeah, absolutely. Florian, thinking about action and some of the things that we've heard also that Merck does, tell me about some of the actions that in the audience that actually have planned for Family Forward.
Yeah, so maybe can I just start relating a bit, Gudrun, what you said to me a couple of weeks ago, which made me realize a lot. I think as a business leader, probably all of you will agree that gender equality is imperative. If you haven't understood this, you have an issue. And the basic fact of the matter is, if you want to leverage your full talent potential, there's no other way. So then you have to stand by your colleagues and by your employees in the moments that matter. And obviously, and I think this is, I'm stealing Gudrun's copyrights here, so the 30s are crunch time or family crunch time. It's usually where you pivot, buying something, apartment, maybe moving, maybe finding the partner, maybe starting a family, maybe making the big next step in your career. It's also, the 30s are also the time where you see most promotions going to that cohort. So now that explains why gender equality is probably still a long way to go. And I think through Family Forward, I'm learning a lot. It's not that we work alone. I'm learning also from many that we connect with, how company culture can really address this and stand by the employees. And I think it just improves also each leader's, I think, understanding of the topic and maybe sensitivity to it. While it's a personal topic, to leave the room and then think about real actions, that you can implement for returners, for instance. I think age is the biggest problem in infertility. People just start too late. And there was, I will say, also quite eye-opening. We did, as a company, a survey with 10,000 Gen Zs and millennials. And I would have thought that is, known. But, it has told us that there's still a lot of lack of awareness on this topic. And it's very basic to say age, makes it just harder to start a family. And the second problem is, if that happens, you have actually good options. But I think innovation is only innovation. And as a healthcare, working in the healthcare space, innovation is only innovation if it reaches, the patients. If something is in between, it's not an innovation. It's close to it, but it's not. And here, like you rightfully mentioned, in the country like Switzerland, how is it possible, that we don't have equal and broad access to fertility treatments? And only then it's an innovation. So I think the good thing is I'm positive. It's not so en vogue to be positive these days. I am positive. I think it will move, and I think we will see a lot of positive change on that. And for me, Family Forward is our way, how we drive this in Switzerland.
And I think action also comes from education. And Gudrun, you're an educator. And I'm curious to hear, because I think we've heard so many stories as well that, again, being too late, that women are educated too late to move forward with fertility treatments. So what do you see, or what are you doing that you feel is very relevant to the educational side of things and to get to individuals early?
Yeah, so we try to contribute wherever possible. So at the moment we are working on a white paper to raise the awareness, but also make people aware of the limited access. On the other hand, if we again look at the leaders' side, so to educate the leaders how to react properly, how to also give a sense of security, that people can open up and are taken serious. And of course we also try to contribute with facts. At the end of the day, we publish the gender intelligence report each year together with Advance. And these are the facts Florian just mentioned. So the rush hours of life, where 50% of the promotions happen between 30 and 40. Or if you look at the employment percentage, 80% plus go to full-time workers. And even if you reduce to 90%, your chance to being promoted goes down dramatically. And that's ridiculous, isn't it? So there is a lot to do on the education side. We make a lot of good experiences once we tie in or bring the facts to the table and link it to really personal stories so that people can remember.
And getting that out there, and I think that that's the thing as well, is making sure we get the white paper out there, that people see the statistics, because they are important along with the personal stories. So it's a great thing, great project, this white paper. I can't wait to see when it's going to be completed. And we've talked also about stigma. There is a lot of stigma around this topic. People don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about it. But how do we change that? And how do we make this become a standard conversation that we can have in the office? Karen?
So when we look at healthcare programs, many that we're looking into in WHO, so many of them are actually filled with stigma. And then the question is, how do we address it? And opportunities like today are fantastic moments where we can, as a society, get together and highlight those moments where we're like, look, this is an issue we would like to address. Here we can see certain initiatives come either from the private sector or from academia. And all these initiatives, as a global community, in the end, they reach those moments where at the national level, policymakers get together, and that push from the society, from the private sector, from certain politicians, they then in the end, they have to be taken into consideration. So if we want to address issues that relate to topics that are close to our heart or that are filled with stigma, and if we want to see policy change, we have to continue talking about them. Opportunities like these are wonderful moments where not only do we have a reach within this room, but the reach goes beyond, and thank you to the audiences outside. But I think it's just to seize that moment where we are aware it is a problem, we are not afraid to talk about it, we are looking into solutions that are being provided either from academia or from the private sector or from patient organizations or any other angle, and we then in the end gather all of that and we move forward.
We're definitely excited to move forward. So we're in the future, and this topic has become standard. What does that future look like? What are some of the steps that we can take now to actually make that future a reality, that we have these conversations with each other and in our workplaces? Florian, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you. Yeah. So it starts all with recognizing there's something we have to tackle. Okay, I think that the WHO came forward saying infertility is a disease. This was a pivotal moment. Okay, and I think, I look at countries like France who just, share the fertility action plan, that is across stakeholders, that is broadly supported. I think shows countries get it, okay, particularly in Europe, okay. Birth rates are keeping to fall at all-time levels and lower each year. And I think the only way to address the root causes is if you go broad with the stakeholders. We talked about all of it. I think stigma, taboos, but also the lack of awareness with the young generation. I think it's the leadership in all organizations, not only the private sector, but I think the policymakers have a big role to play. I think it's very clear that legislation is enforcing really this will at the very end, and I think gives after all access. So I would really strongly suggest that this is my call to action. Countries that are serious about it, I think they need to have such a plan in place, and I think it can be done, and many are doing it. So I'm optimistic. We will see a lot more on this when we meet in 5 years. That many companies, in my view, will have a fertility benefit. It will be another very normal benefit to have, and I think that's sometimes you face as a pioneer. And you get a bit more wind in your face, and it's usually a good sign in my view. But I think it's the start, and we will see more of it.
Gudrun, how about you? What does the future look like?
I concentrate on the employer side, and I would highly recommend that in the companies we rethink our career planning, our career plans, that we normalize having families, and also that we reflect on all our biases. just to share some of the biases. One is the so-called maybe baby bias that already leads to that women are not promoted because they might have children. And once they have children, we just did a white paper last year together with EY, the most overlooked group are the women over 40. So they are ambitious, they want to do the next steps, but they are not considered in the companies. And so that's really weird. So reflect on the biases, adjust the career path, and normalize family planning in the companies.
Caroline.
So I had put down my notes to ensure that we change the narrative, right? From something rather negative, a bit taboo, stigmatized, etc. I would not say change the narrative. I'd like us to start elevating the narrative. Because in the end, when we listen to your stories, when we listen to the efforts that you're making, when we're listening at what other efforts other organizations are doing or businesses, that is a very positive movement here. That was not the case a few years ago. When we look at WHO guidelines that are being put out there, when we look at initiatives done by different governments, I think if you also start highlighting all the positive initiatives that are already occurring on which we can then build, that would be for me the wish to move forward and to elevate the debate. Thank you.
Khadija.
So for me, I know that everyone talks about AI and the future being AI. I just want to close by the future is human more than ever. And I really like that. I think what good look like and is elevating the narrative, but making sure that it's really part of our, let's say, DNA, and inclusive, an invitation to really have fertility, family-friendly topic everywhere, and going beyond the traditional, because we are still talking about, married couple. We are not talking about same, I would say, gender, etc. So I think we have to think about how the world is evolving, and we really want to make sure that across the humanity, the system of value is exactly the same. People want to be valued, respected, and giving them accessibility, affordability of fertility is part of the journey everywhere, despite who they are, where they are, and their basically gender or marital status is something that I would like to see as part of the future.
And you're right, we fall into these biases, don't we? Because we can also talk about single parents as well. There's so many categories. We have to be careful what we do and what we think there. So thank you all. We hope we've created a ripple. We hope that you have some data. We hope that you have some stories. We hope that you share your stories, because that's what's going to make the impact. Talk about this, bring this up, take it to your company, because we often think that we're small people. We can't make an impact. Oh, but we definitely can. So we challenge you to do this. Leave today and talk about fertility and talk about family planning. It's a very important topic. So thank you very much. And are there any questions? We have 4 seconds, but I don't know. I don't know that we're going to do this. Anything pressing? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Robert Newland, and first of all, I don't understand what's wrong with us, men or women, that somehow demonize pregnancy, because we should treat every woman like we treat our mothers. Second, when you talk about career planning, which I do understand, I've done a lot of research on pay inequities by gender, and it's true. Wouldn't it help if companies, it's a question of just a statement, if companies treated giving birth, taking care of children, as a step back, and then when mothers come back into the workplace, provide them a coaching program to sort of catch up, as opposed to telling them, sorry, you're screwed, deal with it, which is what we get for now for women across the planet.
I've just heard a nice example the other day that one company offers for the female returners, they offer again financial support. They say you have to prioritize and you have to delegate as much as you can. And here is a small sum. It's in the whole budget. It's really ridiculous, small amount, but it helps what you say to catch up and to really have then the full potential out there, so that you are not restricted to jobs that are far below your potential and your education.
Yeah, I think it's so true. It's the balance, isn't it? It's not just the front end when you have the children. It is the returners. It's a very big topic that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
But just a fun fact, because I came back from maternity leave 2.5 years ago, our brain doesn't stop when we're on maternity leave. So we might not sometimes have to do some catch up because we are back on track very, very quickly. So.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you all. My name is Soumya. I'm representing the Vanderbilt Women in Business organization from the United States. Undergraduates who are entering into a workforce where reproductive rights are under attack, as well as credentialing of large organizations such as the WHO are under attack, what advice do you have for individuals to self-advocate in organizations that may not be receptive to healthcare and women's health as a basic right?
I can take it. I mean, I work for an organization where we have 63,000 employees, and I really think you will always find someone who will really be there to advocate. So I will say try to really focus on those who will help you, sponsorship, mentorship, coaching. There are many, many champions in the organization that you can leverage, and we need step by step to create a movement. I mean, it's like gender parity. If you think about a couple of years ago, I mean, we were far away from what we want, but step by step, I really think it's about being intentional. There are some champions, there are some early adopters, there are always some people who will never get with us. Don't waste your energy if you cannot change them, but at some point, maybe HR can change them, but try to really go after those who can really help you. There is always a help and a holding hand you can have around, so that would be one of the advice.
And I think along with the sponsors and the mentors, there are also associations. So you can get involved in other groups that can also help lift up and actually bring that topic alive as well.
I just want to, Sabine, I mean, you don't take credit for it, but you know, the HPA is doing so much on this, you know, particularly on women's health. And I think, just want to echo, finding an ally, speaking up like you do, so I think this is the first thing. Yeah.
Thank you all very much, and thanks for your attention. It was really you were a lovely audience today as well, so thank you.
Thank you, everyone.